right. Welcome back to the Command Your Brand show. I'm your host, Josh Silvestro, brand ambassador of Command Your Brand. So in this episode, actually, I have a very special guest speaker who kind of goes into a lot of the financial scenes of lending and spending, because I know a lot of CEOs and founders who are listening can have a hard time with this and just, need more help and more knowledge of what to actually do with that. So actually I have a good friend of mine who's the CEO and founder of Simple Lending Financial. And she's actually a business owner. She's a CEO and founder. So I'd like to introduce you guys to Janine. So Janine, thanks for joining the show.
Yes, thanks so much, Josh, for having me. And I've been in talks with Command Your Brand, and it's a great, PR firm to be aligned with. So I'm very excited to be on your podcast.
Yeah, it's exciting. So I guess what we'll first start off with is tell us a little bit about yourself for people who don't know who you are, and give us a little background of how you started in this whole arena.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Janine Cascio. I'm the CEO and founder of Simple Lending Financial. We provide business investor loans nationwide. And I worked for some firms in New York. I'm originally from New York. During COVID, I actually relocated to Houston. And then when I was kind of working remotely, I then cultivated a new mindset for myself that I could kind of branch off and come into the Houston market and really create my own firm here. So I've kind of just been on this journey of growing and scaling my private lending business.
Wow, that's awesome. So just out of curiosity, because I'm actually curious, is what do you think? Because you do mostly businesses, or do you do individuals, or who do you work with mostly?
Yeah, so we will only lend to LLC or corporations in business entities. But yeah, real estate investors looking to really, start doing fix and flips and buy and holds and building rental portfolios or ground up construction loans. We really cater to the self-employed, whereas conventional financing, they look at income. They have a lot more constraints where we can get creative and really help, the self-employed or people just looking to do fix and flips and start building their own business through real estate. So we're just a capital provider, and, we really open the door of opportunity for a lot of people.
Yeah. What do you think, just out of curiosity, I love your feedback. What do you think people run into in terms of actually borrowing and borrowing money and actually getting their business rolling? I know some people, I don't know if you work with a lot of people who are just newly starting or they've been around for a long time, but what do you think the hardest thing about lending and just the whole concept of that? Because I know a lot of people are afraid to borrow, but then they're like, I have to borrow so I can actually make it. So what is your intake on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think, private lending in general is just such a tool, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just I really encourage people to just educate themselves around it. Some people think it's very hard to obtain loans, where we are more flexible, and hence my name, Simple Lending. We make it more available to people to obtain a loan. We cultivate a community where we host lunch and learns, happy hours. We encourage people to come and really educate themselves. And we work with first-time investors. And like I mentioned, we don't have any income constraints or anything like that. We more per se look at the property itself and make sure that it's cash flowing or profitable fix and flip. So as much as, we're here to lend you the money, we're also here to educate you. And we wouldn't lend on anything that we wouldn't advise as, a good deal.
Right. Do you find people, when they borrow money, especially newer people, do you find they're kind of uneducated on the whole subject?
Yeah, for sure. I think private lending in general is such a niche, and I still think that there's so many people out there that are unaware of it, unaware that they can, buy loans just off the cash flow of the property and not really having all these qualifications of what they need to meet to get that loan. So I think, just in general, just educating people on different ways they could get creative of, acquiring real estate and buying and fix and flipping homes and building homes from the ground up. I think there's, that's why we try and push so much educational material and blogs and resources. So we do always encourage people to check out our website and learn more and educate themselves.
Yeah, I find it very interesting because for some of us, who are kind of uneducated in this whole space, and I think there's a lot of things about business we don't know, and sometimes we don't admit it that we don't know because we, as CEOs and founders, we're like, oh, we got to be on top, and that's how we think we kind of know all a little bit. So, like, what do you find that you run into the most when you talk to people who own businesses that their troubles with like when they're lending or they're trying to get lends and they can't, and the struggle they kind of know in terms of knowing what to do, what not to do, and how much they should borrow? I know it's a loaded question.
Yeah, for sure. So,
Yeah.
Like what we lend on is always like real estate backed. But in general, if people are trying to get, loans for their business or any type of business, it's just very good to just educate yourself and ask the questions because you can't really get anywhere without asking. So I always say that just start becoming curious and, ask the questions and, it'll help you guide you in the right direction.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, I guess could you name a couple things, maybe like 3 things that actually like good tips that would help people who want to start borrowing money or start like lending, getting, borrowing for their business or for real estate? Like, what are some key questions do you think they should ask?
Yeah, for sure. So, always check the guidelines of what we need to obtain the loan and go through the underwriting process. So upfront, we do check, their credit, their background, the property itself. So, we do liquidity checks. So whether you have to bring 15% down or 20% down, we want to make sure that's in the bank. So we just look at the most 2 recent bank statements. But I would make sure you're, whether you're doing a fix and flip or a ground up, to just check the property and work with your lender because your lender is here to guide you and make sure the deal's going to be profitable. So, whether you're running comps in the area, or getting your rehab budget together, working with a general contractor. So, always just get curious and, find those outlets of what you need to obtain, whether, you get the value of the home, the rehab budget, see what it's worth after the fact, run some comps. Those would be the first few steps I would take.
Nice. And I guess like another question too, I know some people have this where, when they borrow money, they're never actually sure how much they should actually borrow, right? Because I know some people are kind of go the cheap end. They kind of go, oh, I want to borrow as little as possible so I can just pay it off back. And there's some people like, I want to borrow as much as I can and spend it all.
Yeah.
So what do you find is like the middle ground in terms of like what to borrow, how much you should borrow, and things like that? I guess how would you know? How would anybody know, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. When people are kind of refinancing their homes, they do tend to want the max cash out just to have it available. And there's cost to it, right? There's cost involved with going the route of refinancing or, buying a home. So typically for real estate investors, the more cash on hand they can have to acquire more properties. Because I think the end goal for a lot of these investors is to, either fix and flip as many homes as they can in a month or buy and hold as many properties as they can. Like, a lot of their goals are, let me buy 10 rental properties and hold on to that and make passive income. So in order to buy those 10 properties, you need down payment for each 10. So when you're, then acquiring new homes. So it really just depends on their end goal. Then there's on the other flip side, right? There's people scared of debt and I want to pay off debt as quick as possible. So like I said, the mortgage business and lending in general can just be leveraged and a tool. Sometimes, having a mortgage on your home's the cheapest money you could find. I know a lot of people that run businesses and they're looking at business loans and things like that. But then they're like, if I just refinance my house, I'll be able to pay like a 5% interest rate and not a 10% interest rate. So it really is just how you want to get creative, right? And how you want to live your life and how you envision your life.
Right. And I know too, for some people, I don't know if you've seen this, I'm sure probably in the past couple of years. And of course, here, I don't really talk about politics, but like, I'm sure in terms of how the inflation has been in terms of housing and other stuff like that, how they've just affected how much people have been buying houses, and a lot of them have been selling houses. Do you think that has a big effect on people, or how they've actually been spending or lending money from that?
Yeah, for sure. I think when it comes to primary homes and people looking to, buy something they plan to live in forever, politics definitely plays a part. It's same with inflation. So there's kind of been this waiting game. But on my side of like private lending, I work with a lot of real estate investors that are looking to flip homes very quickly. So the interest rate to them is they don't even play a part in their mindset of where they're going with the project. It's all the
Right.
equity they're going to build with the renovation. So luckily on the private lending side, whether rates are going up or, like elections coming up, it doesn't take too deep of a play.
Right. I find it's interesting too, because, a lot of people, I don't know if you just work with houses, but also like even commercial type things where people are trying to get business loans to rent a place or, do a place, and they're like, oh, well, this is too expensive, I'm going to do it for my garage or something like that.
Mhm.
I know that does play a big part in terms of inflation, and like how everything's just costing more and more. Like, I'm in Jersey, and like, I think a decent sized house, like on the cheaper end, is like 700,000, 800,000. You know what I mean? So it's like people are just like, oh, I don't want to sink my teeth into that, because it's just, I don't see the profitability in terms of that. Do you think it's also the location as well, or you think it's just the actual how much things have grown just in the past 4 years?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think location takes a part. Real estate flipping in general does have its hot markets, like
Mhm.
Florida, Texas right now. But yeah, in New York, there's not many homes that you can fix and flip or find the profitability, because
Yeah.
the purchase price on these homes are close to $1 million. And it could be a property that does need rehab. But yeah, it definitely takes a part just in a larger scale of what you're looking to do.
Yeah, I mean, you can basically buy a penthouse at that point. I might as well just buy a penthouse in Manhattan, in like the Central Park area.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you think there's something about it that should change so it's more effective and more like, because I know people who want to do it, but they're either too afraid, or they're just like, they don't want to take that next step of borrowing and lending and all the other actions. Do you think that some things need to change in terms of actually getting that done, or is it more like a economical type thing?
Yeah, for my perspective, when people ask me like, should I wait? Should I not wait? When's a good time to buy? And for me, it's always now. I think there's a lot of things in politics and inflation and things that will maybe instill fear in you. But if you have this belief that, the home you're flipping or the property you're buying is going to acquire and build equity. I think, investing in real estate, it's always a good time to buy now.
Mm,
Whether the rates are going up or down, it's all about just holding it and building the equity through long term, or flipping the project and selling it more than what you bought it for. So I always advise clients to kind of just jump the hurdle and dive right in, because
right.
in reality, it's just an illusion that there's a perfect time, because really there's not.
Right, because I know people like, oh, I'm gonna wait till the election's over. I think things are gonna be different, and like I think it's gonna be much better. But it's sort of hard to say, because there's just so many things happen, and things can go the wrong direction. Like, I look at stocks, for example. It's kind of like you buy and sell, and like, oh my god, it's gonna be great, and then all of a sudden it crashes, and then like you kind of lost all you put into it. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Exactly.
I kind of look at an example was like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with how familiar you are with stocks. I'm not really familiar at all, but when I was a kid, like, GameStop was like my place to go. And, a stock went up so high that it just kept going. Then all of a sudden it just dropped, and like everyone just kind of lost their money, because they're like, oh, when's the best time to do it? It's like,
Yeah.
there's no, and I think that's a really good point that you mentioned, that there's never really a good time to just actually do it until you just do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
just dive in and walk into the unknown, and
Yeah.
I advise people to do that all the time, because if anyone's going to sit here and try and predict the future, like they're full of, I won't say that word, but, so it's just like, and I encourage people all the time. It's just because now that I'm, in a CEO and founding position, like, I don't know everything and I'm constantly walking into the unknown. So I think there's that part that it's like, okay, there's something scary, but then there's the people that just do it anyway. Like, just do it anyway. Like, so I think it then cultivates into a mindset of, overcoming obstacles, embracing the challenges as they come, and just knowing that, that's part of the journey. And, even when people are looking to take the leap of, buying a house or, starting a new job, it's just like, sometimes it's just about diving in and figuring it out as you go along.
Right. And I would actually like to talk to you because I know you're also the CEO and founder of your company. And, what's kind of interesting is that, I'm not sure because I see you have a whole big office there. I was like, oh my gosh, you must have a lot of people that work for her. But like, I guess for you, but I guess for you, because it's interesting that like, how do you operate? I'm just kind of curious. How does the whole lending, it's not like a bank, obviously, but it's like, how does it actually, the whole process work?
Yeah, so we're pretty much considered a private bank. So, I'm the CEO, I have a chief operating officer, I have a director of marketing, I have account managers. So essentially, if you were looking to inquire about buying a fix and flip, you would be in touch with one of our account managers. You would just give some details off the property itself. They would run some terms for you. And once you have agreed upon terms, the first step is obviously order appraisal. This way we could get the value of the home, and we'd be lending off of that. And then, it just is pretty easy process when it comes to what's needed, which is really just LLC docs or corporation docs, because we always just lend to the business entity. And we'll run title, get the insurance of the home, 2 recent bank statements, and that's it. Whereas conventional financing has a ton of stuff. They go through your tax incomes and tax returns, and a lot of other steps for that. But we try and make it a very seamless process.
Yeah, it seems like it's made a really easy process for, for people who come in and just want to buy something or get things loaned to them, right? And I find it very interesting because it sounds like, it's actually a very simple process when it's, a lot of people make it out to be a really complicated and scary thing,
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's life in general. People us as humans complicate life more than it is. Life can be simple, so can the loan process. So I like to make that, relate those two. But the name stands for itself. It's simple, it's easy. You could be a first-time client. You could have not the best credit score. We could get creative and cater to you.
Yeah. So I guess because on my, on the show, I've also had a lot of real estate and a lot of sales and a lot of different other type of people on the podcast, but also a lot of people who are listening are also CEOs and founders. They're also in real estate and they all deal with a lot of different things, right? And I guess for you as a CEO, like what do you find is the key for you that helped run your business and just really transformed into like a really easy and simple team environment?
Yeah, for sure. I think, a positive team and a positive mindset really reaps positive results. And, I actually recently just bought the book, The Positivity of a Team by John Gordon. So we'll be studying that over the next month. But I think, having this customer obsession mentality, being transparent, especially in the lending business where people think they're being lied to, people feel like they're being bait and switched on terms and things like that. I think coming from a transparent customer obsession, always putting our values and morals above being transactional is really the key. And obviously cultivating that positive team unity within the office space is very important. When I first started, I hired a lot of people remotely. And then I started bringing everyone into the office and really working on culture. And I think culture is number one for me now. And, I put culture over everything. So, if something's not fit or not working with our culture, I'll just like cut it out immediately. So
Right.
I stayed focused on that for sure.
I find it what's cool is that actually I was speaking to another person yesterday on the podcast, and what was interesting, he mentioned a really cool thing, how everyone has to be sort of aligned to what your purpose and your drive is. Otherwise, if they're not, then it's sort of like they're kind of, I wouldn't say they're dead weight, but they're sort of like they kind of drag the team down, because if there's one team that's just like not with you, that it just doesn't drive the whole thing. So it kind of makes sense of what you're talking about, but just bringing it all together as a team.
Yeah,
So it's been
sure.
interesting.
Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, it says that finding the right people for the bus is key. And those right people are bought into the company's mission, bought into the company's values, understands the company values, because essentially you have to move as that. And, as a leader, my team is a direct reflection of me.
Right.
So really having that, knowing that every person here is reflecting how I want to be portrayed, how my brand's being portrayed, and keeping that as the center focus.
I think that's a very cool idea you just kind of gave me, just how the fact your employees are you, but like branched out and like they reflect as you know what I mean? And I kind of look at like other things in terms of what everyone else in a company does. It's like you're them, but like in a more stabilized place in the organization. So it's like, so it's interesting how you put that. And I think it's really cool just to see someone actually think with that in terms of their organization, their business, and how they run things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's, if employees are doing something that you're not liking, it's kind of like a boundary you need to set. Like I always tell people to always go inward. So if someone's like blaming something or that, or pointing fingers, it's always like, how can I fix the problem? How can I be better? How can I set more boundaries around what is being needed or portrayed or worked on? So it did take a lot of inner work, scaling and growing. But finding the right people is everything. And when you have that, it's very nice.
Yeah. I find it too, is that if you don't have the actual, the right people for the job, then that makes the job more difficult, because you can't actually forward your purpose or your drive into something. So I think obviously you seem like you have your right people on the job. So it seems like they're all in one driving force, and they know what you want, and they know, what they want in terms of what their accomplishment is in the company. So I think that's what makes it more important, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it doesn't happen overnight. There's a lot of people that have came and gone. But yeah, holding on to the ones and also valuing them and, bringing them up and having an empowerment, like kind of atmosphere. And just knowing that, being grateful for the people that are on your team and having that gratitude will go a long way.
Totally. So like as a CEO, like what are things that, you've made mistakes on that you think for other people who want to learn from you, or even just like be a better person, or just like a CEO and founder? What did your failures teach you, and what you should do, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. It's a loaded question. There's a lot of mistakes, and I do believe that people need to naturally make mistakes and learn from them, and go through your own experience. But for me, it's always, making time for myself and putting myself first. And I have a very steady morning routine where, I wake up, I do yoga, I meditate, I plan my day, make sure, the most priority things are being done in the morning. And just, making sure that with my team, I'm scheduling one-on-one time, but to know that I'm also scheduling one-on-one time with myself and checking in with myself, because you can't give to others what you can't give to yourself. So as long as you're putting yourself first and keeping your health and your mental health to top priority, that's how you could create value for those around you.
Yeah, that makes sense too, because if you can't take care of yourself, how can you take care of your company, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
As a CEO and founder, you get all the fire alarms. So to be able to, separate and also have like a bird's eye view and not be trapped in in the chaos when things go chaotic, because it's so important for you to be that steady, calm person that everyone could lean on and go to. Like, people's jobs are on your shoulders, your work operations are on your shoulders. So really being able to embrace that and be okay with the stress and know the tools and things to handle that, and just remaining calm.
Right. What are the tools, do you think? Because I know a lot of people do run into this problem where they feel like, most of their day as CEOs, they feel like most of the day is putting out fires in the company. How do you feel like people should manage that in terms of, because you have a group of people who work with you and, all of them are good and some of them are like, they have a little trouble here and there, but like, how do you, put out the fires fast? Do you think that would be helpful for other CEOs and founders?
Yeah, for sure. So I try and put it in my hands per se as much as possible of knowing to respond and not react. And if there's something that comes up immediately, to take those deep breaths or even go for that walk and then just know how to, solve the issues. And like I said, I try and do my most priority complex things in the morning, because I do know I'm a morning person. That's when I have the most energy to conquer. And to also know, trying to control it in the sense of if there's things coming up, also being I'm going to handle this at this time, and kind of maneuvering it around your schedule for when it's good for you. And when you're in a good place to handle that. So when people are throwing things on you, to kind of be having that boundary of okay, I'll handle this now, this then, and diving into things when you're in the best state and not when things are just being thrown at you.
Right. I think I don't know if you get this, but a lot of CEOs and founders I think when they handle so much, they get just burnt out in terms of a company and actually running a company. And I think that's where sort of for people as CEOs, they kind of die out in terms as being CEOs, because they're I don't want to do this anymore. I want to sell my company. I want to, so how do you, maybe it's a little loaded question for you, but how do you manage in terms of yourself being the CEO and founder and actually running your whole organization?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great question. I've actually done a podcast on my blissful beings with my sister on avoiding burnout. But in general, I really think for me, and everyone has their own personal things that they could go to. But for me, it was always whether I'm doing yoga in the morning or that 10-minute mindful meditation or removing myself from the situation and having that bird's eye view and having that awareness around how to handle things, and also knowing that, we are the creators of our reality. So I try and much as possible, plan my day out so that I know it's not burning me out. And then if I'm having these conversations or these calls that are taking a lot of my energy, to plan that appropriately. So for instance, when we were onboarding with my new software, and for me, technology is it drained me. So I'd make sure my calls were at a half hour, because they used to be 2-hour calls. And I put those down immediately. I'm good for a half hour of technology, and I'll do it in the morning, because I am best thriving in situations that bring me energy and that I enjoy doing. And I enjoy working with clients, and I'm very hands-on as a CEO. I'll deal with clients personally and help them through the process. And I think that's best when I'm giving value to others, and I try and keep my energy where I want it. So it's really that of really trying to be aware of what takes your energy and what leads you to burnout.
Totally.
So that's for me. I do the little 10-minute meditations here and there, breathing exercises help, and just planning my day out to avoid the burnout.
Right. Well, that's very cool. I just appreciate the intake and what you had to say about being a CEO founder, because I know a lot of people, at least not, I wouldn't say for me, but a lot of other people around the world, they want to be business owners. They want to be a CEO and founder for a company. But I find that a lot of people are just too scared to actually do it because of how much work and how much effort it takes just to actually maintain it and run it, and what you have to do and all the other things to the sacrifices and the benefits, you know what I mean? So how do you balance all of that? How does that, I know it's also kind of a loaded question, but like, how do you in your life balance it?
Yeah, just because I have been going through the journey, right? And like, there's little things that I've experienced. And if I could give anyone advice, it does get better. You actually like adjust to the pressure. So there's a lot of things that used to bother me last year when I first started my company that like happens this year that I'm like, no big deal because I've already overcome this. So if I could give advice to anyone, it's like, just take those moments and knowing that those moments are only here to serve you and make you grow. Because, life's never going to throw too much at you that you can't handle. Everything you're capable of overcoming, everything you can embrace with grace, and just know that you're going to be growing. And as human beings, I think that's what we're meant to be here, is to grow and grow as a consciousness. And, as an entrepreneur, like I like challenges. I almost pray for challenges, because when I'm getting those challenges, I'm overcoming them and I'm becoming stronger and stronger.
Wow, that's awesome. I actually really appreciate that because I think it is like you're kind of like a lion in a den when there's like dinosaurs around. So you're kind of like, I gotta take a challenge and like just push it through, So I really admire and appreciate that. That's pretty cool.
For sure.
Awesome. And I guess I would love to also hear from you too, like can you give us like a little snippet of like a story of some success you've had in the company, that you've been part of for so long, how like just some of the benefits and the values you brought to a client of yours or someone in the office or anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. So, when it comes to like my team, I've just adapted a lot of tools and techniques as, going from a loan originator to a business owner. So I try and give those values and techniques back to them. When it comes to clients, like my greatest joy is seeing first-time flippers or people that have worked on projects for other people, then create an LLC and work on a project for themselves where they could utilize us as a capital provider and we could help them every step of the way. So seeing that really does bring me a lot of joy. And I just feel like, creating that community that we have where we are posting blogs and resources and lunch and learns and happy hours for people to come and learn and grow with us. Our mission statement is that we empower our investors for growth and success. As we grow as a company, and we're a young company, we're only 2 years old. We love seeing, repeat clients grow alongside us.
Right.
So we're constantly trying to give value, and not be, that transactional bank that just wants to close a deal. Like we really want to create those partnerships and watch people grow alongside us.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing such a good story. I like hearing those successes that people have in their company because, I think for CEOs and founders, we're just always having to put fires out and just, always having the struggle of like, oh my God, we always think about how bad something's going to happen. But we never actually look at the good at what we're doing. So I really appreciate what you said about that because I think that's something we should also focus on than the bad because just it doesn't really help to really focus on the bad because the bad's just the bad. And it's always going to...
I agree. Just focus on what you want and what you want to create for yourself and stay on positive thinking and, positive will come from that. Like in general, like we're helping people rehab communities. We're helping people build new homes for families. We are in a housing shortage nationwide. So there's a lot of people that are renting right now that really truly want to be homeowners. And, my capital and my financing, especially nationwide, is helping build more homes for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time that you've given me and answering a lot of questions about real estate and about, lending and your company. And I really appreciate the time that you've taken just to really speak to me and answer a lot of questions. So I guess before we end here, people kind of want to know a little bit more about you and maybe want to reach out to your company because I have something I want to be a part of and I want to, I need help with that. So how can people find you? How can people locate and talk to someone on your team or even you or whichever?
Yeah, for sure. I think the best place to connect with me directly would be LinkedIn. My name is Janine Cascio. And then if you want to inquire about, our products, to just check out our website, www.simplelendingfinancial.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate the time you've given us, and I guess answering any questions. Yeah. And just, of course, answering a lot of questions for us. And, for those of who are listening, thank you for joining us. And if you guys like this stuff, let me know, like and subscribe to this. And thank you for joining the show. And thanks, Janine, for being a part of the show.
It's been fun. Thank you.
Yeah.